What's good, everybody? All right, it's a big day on the NFL calendar for some teams, and our Raiders are lucky to be one of them. We're getting a big bump to our salary cap, and I think it's going to lead to some pretty big moves. And I want to break it down. I want to talk to you guys about it and get your feedback. But before we do, let's play a quick game and have a little bit of fun. I think you guys will like this one, so roll with me on this. And so, up on the screen, if you could choose one of these players to add to our current 2024 roster in their prime, which one would you choose to help us on our path to the Super Bowl this season? You got Khalil Mack in his prime, an absolute monster. Imagine him opposite of Max Crosby. No quarterback would have a chance at all for any quarterbacks that we play. But then you got Charles Woodson. Imagine Charles Woodson opposite of Jack Jones. Now Jack Jones is covering the number two. Charles Woodson's going to lock down the number one, and you got Trayvon Morgan, Marcus Epps. There's no quarterback that'd be able to pass on us with that type of secondary. So would you choose Charles Woodson to bring back in his prime one more time to help us? And then you got Rich Gannon, one of the best quarterbacks to wear the silver and black. We already got a stud defense. All we really need is a quarterback. Would you bring back Rich Gannon that would give us a chance to win this Super Bowl in 2024 season? And at the very least, or at the very last, would you pick one of the most dynamic players to ever wear the silver and black in Bo Jackson? Put Bo Jackson in that backfield and see him just run all over defenses. Let me know in the comment section down below, who would you choose to add to this 2024 roster in their prime to help us win the 2024 Super Bowl? Let me know in the comments down below, guys. So before I get into it, if you can, please like this video, subscribe, turn those notifications. My next giveaway is at 4,000 subscribers. So if you want to be included in that, hit that subscribe button. At the very least, if you can't hit that like button, I definitely appreciate it. And so starting today, June 2nd, we officially got a bump of a little over $24 million thanks to Jimmy G to our salary cap. And as of right now, it stands, we have the sixth most salary cap of all NFL teams. We're sitting at around 34 million. And really, how should we spend that? How should we spend that cap? We've restructured Max Crosby's contract. We gave him a $6 million raise this year, which I think was a really good move by Tom Telesco, right? He's basically given appreciation to the leaders in the locker room. And so there could be other contracts that we take a look at. One of the things is you might want to take a look at Devonta Adams' contract. Next year he's set to make, I think it's roughly around 44 million. He's going to have a $44 million cap hit, to our cap space next year. And that's something that Tom Telesco might want to take a look at this year. So we might see some restructuring of some contracts. So keep an eye out for that. I know I will. But as we look at the 34 million that we have to spend, there's a couple things we need to take into consideration. There's four ways that you can use this and spend this cap money. One of them is you can extend your existing players. If there's players on this roster you think you want to extend their contracts, pay them a little bit more, show them that we value them, then we can go ahead and do so. So that's one thing that you can do. Potential signings of free agents. Now we have more money. There's a lot of free agents that are still out there that can contribute day one, that can make a difference to your team. And they've been waiting for this date. I made a video on Yannick Ngakoue, the DN that played for us a few years ago. I made a video on basically saying that there's a good chance that he's not going to sign until the June 1 money hits, because he's still good enough to contribute to a team, and he might be waiting for another little payday. And so there might be a team out there that needs an edge rush that's willing to pay him a little bit more. So there's players out there that are just waiting for this June 1 money to hit, and it's hit today. So let's see how this plays out. And then in addition to that, you want to save some money just in case you want to sign somebody later in the season. A lot of injuries happen. All right. So you want to make sure that you save up some of that salary cap space just in case you want to sign somebody later in the season due to injury. And then you do have possible trade situations, during the preseason, even going into the season, you can possibly trade for a player, and you want to have some salary cap just in case you want to do that. You also can roll over some of your salary as well to the 2025 season. So there's multiple ways that we can use this 34 million, and I want to dive into it. And so the first thing I want to look at is player extensions, right? Who on this team right now could we potentially extend? Going from left to right, you got Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs, one of the best defenders we have on this football team. One of the things I'll say about Nate Hobbs is he plays a slot corner. The slot corner position is one of the hardest positions to not only play on the defense, but it's one of the hardest to find a player that could be extremely good at that position. I mean, you got to imagine you are defending some of the quickest and fastest players on that offense. And usually slot receivers, they're lined up on the inside, which means they got the entire field to run. They can go from sideline to sideline. They can attack every single inch of that football field, and you have to guard them. And so finding a quality slot corner is one of the hardest things to find in the National Football League. And so you got Nate Hobbs sitting there, and then you got Robert Spillane. Robert Spillane is an absolute stud. What he did for us last year was just absolutely amazing. And for him to solidify it in the middle of that defense and be a captain on that defense, I think is definitely something you want to take a look at and possibly extend. But at the same time, we picked up Tommy Eichenberg. We don't know, is that going to be the predecessor to Robert Spillane? He is on last year of his contract. You don't know. Once you extend him, I think he's going to be well into his 30s. And so it's going to be really hard to look at a linebacker at that age and think, how many more years does he have? And in addition to that, if you look at what happened in this year's draft, you have teams that no longer really look at those solid middle linebackers as a top 10 pick, unless they are just absolutely off the charts when it comes to talent. But you had some extremely good middle linebackers, inside linebackers, getting drafted in the later part of the first round. And so you might be able to find yourself getting a day one starter next year later in the first round. And if we do well this year, that's where we might find ourselves sitting in the draft. And so that's one thing you got to take into consideration when looking at who you want to extend. And then you got Malcolm Koonce. I think everybody thinks that Malcolm Koonce is going to have a breakout year. And I think that really the Raiders should take a look at extending him. But one thing that I do think that Malcolm Koonce, there's a good chance that he might bet on himself. There's a chance that he might not take an extension, because one of the things you have to think about is when you extend a player, you're trying to pay them a little more money now and not allow them to get to that free agent market where you're going to get into a bidding war. So you're trying to get them a little bit at a bargain. And I think what Malcolm Koonce might do, based on the performance that he did last year, I think that he's going to bet on himself and possibly look for that big payday at the end of next season. And so he might not accept an extension that we offer to him. And then at the very end, you have Trayvon Moehrig. And Trayvon Moehrig was one of my studs coming out in the draft a couple of years ago when we drafted him. I love what Trayvon Moehrig brings to this team, and I think what he showed this season is what I thought he could have done all along. It just took him a couple of years to really get everything, just understand the system, right? Patrick Graham has really dialed it in for him, and he's taken advantage of every opportunity. But one thing to keep in mind is we re-signed Isaiah Pola-Mao. Isaiah Pola-Mao might come in. He showed so many flashes last year that he is going to compete this coming season, and he might really challenge Trayvon Moehrig for that safety spot. And so that's one thing to keep in mind when you look at Trayvon Moehrig. As much as I think he deserves to be looked at as a potential extension, we have Isaiah Pola-Mao that could potentially kind of be at his heels and really challenge him for that spot. And so if you were to ask me, I think the two guys that we really should really prioritize when it comes to extending and extending their contracts, one, I think, is Nate Hobbs. Again, Nate Hobbs, he's an absolute leader. He's extremely good at what he does, and it's extremely hard to find guys that could be that lockdown nickel corner to kind of cover those fast guys on the defense. It's just so hard to find quality nickel corners, and so I definitely think we need to extend Nate Hobbs, offer him an extension, and then Malcolm Koonce. And then outside of that, possibly look at Trayvon Moehrig. I love Robert Spillane, but again, he's kind of up there in age. We did bring on Tommy Eichenberg. If he can be that predecessor, then we already have somebody in the building. But then you got Trayvon Moehrig, and if I were to pick a third, I'd pick Trayvon Moehrig. But let me know in the comment section down below, who are the two guys that you would like to target? Who would you like to target as a potential extension when it comes to the Raiders? And so let me know in the comment section down below. In addition to that, right? You got player extensions, and then next up, you got potential free agents. There's free agents out there. I do think that the Raiders are going to target a corner in free agency, and so there's three guys that are basically on my list that I think that they could target. Number one is Adoree Jackson. He obviously has history with Patrick Graham. A few of his best years playing was with Patrick Graham. So Adoree Jackson is one of them. You also got Stephon Gilmore that's out there, and you also have Xavier Howard. And so, guys, let me know in the comments down below. Out of those three guys, which ones would you prioritize as bringing in as a free agent? In my opinion, the guy that I would like to bring in is Stephon Gilmore. And I'll tell you why. I think Stephon Gilmore brings a hell of a veteran presence, and he's been productive everywhere he's gone. You know, even when Trayvon Diggs went down with the Cowboys last year and he was supposed to be that number one corner, Stephon Gilmore stepped up and played and excelled in that position as the number one corner over there. And so even though he's up there in age, I believe he's 33 years old. He's 33 years old. He's going to turn 34, whether it's, I think, before the season or during the season. Yes, he's up there in age, but he doesn't necessarily need to be that number one corner. He could be that number two opposite of Jack Jones. He can mentor some of the younger corners that we have in this locker room. I think he could be a solid piece to this cornerback room and to this defense that his floor is extremely high. He's going to come in and be consistent, and he's going to do what we want him to do. Now, I know that there's a lot of people that want Xavier Howard, and look, I think the problem with Xavier Howard is he's got the injury history, and his floor is extremely low. I mean, he could get injured, and then it's a wrap. Then you're back to square one. You know, yes, his ceiling is extremely high. He can come in and be that Xavier Howard that he was, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and be able to lock guys down day in and day out. But the thing is that I want to bring in someone that has consistency. I want someone that doesn't have necessarily that injury history and someone that could contribute and be a stud on this defense. And I think Stephon Gilmore could be. So let me know in the comments down below, guys. Out of those three, who would you bring in? And in addition to that, if you think there's somebody else, if you think there's another corner out there in the free agent market that we should bring in, or even another just defender in general, let me know in the comment section down below. Now, in addition to that, we also got trade targets. With the amount of money that we have trade targets that we can go after. And who are those guys? In my opinion, there's two corners that I'd like to target. Number one, James Bradberry. James Bradberry is with the Eagles. That is a very deep Eagles corner room. They picked up a corner in the first round this past year. They still got Slay on the other side. They have a deep corner room, and I think that James Bradberry, again, some of his best years was with Patrick Graham's over with the Giants. I think there's a really good chance that we could bring in James Bradberry, again, be that number two corner, and maybe he can get that vibe back that he had with Patrick Graham and really be a solid corner for us. So I do like potentially looking at James Bradberry as a trade target because we can probably get him for maybe a 6th round. We might be able to trade over a 6th round. And I did a video on this. We actually got 2 comp picks next year in the 6th round. And so we could send over a 6th round and possibly get James Bradberry. Now, the other name that I like that I've had in my head for a while is Marshawn Lattimore over with the Saints. I think there's a good chance that we could take a look at Marshawn Lattimore as a trade target. They picked up Kool-Aid McKinstry, and they got another stud corner over there. They got 2 really good corners sitting there. I think there's a chance that Marshawn Lattimore, they could be open to trading him. You know, what that looks like, we might have to send over, I'd say something around a 4th or 5th round. And so I think that's what we'd have to send over in order to possibly get someone like Marshawn Lattimore. So those are the 2 guys that I'd love to see us target if we were to trade for somebody. So let me know in the comments down below, guys. Let me know, do you think there's somebody out there that we should trade for with the new salary cap money? Should we trade for and bring in to help revamp this team? And so again, I looked at more the defensive side. Let me know if there's an offensive guy out there as well, guys. Let me know if you think there's an offensive player that can contribute and we could trade for or even bring it in free agency. And so in addition to that, I'll end you with this. One of the things that we have to do in order to bring on really anybody in free agency or trade for, we got to start cutting guys. And so I'm going to drop another video on some potential cut candidates, guys that I think that we could cut. I know that there's about 6 guys that I think can automatically be cut. They're kind of at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to their position. And so those guys can get cut pretty quickly. But I think there's also some veterans on this team that can get cut. And we might see that happen to bring on some additional talent. So, guys, I appreciate you sticking with me. It's a big day. 34 million, sixth most salary cap in the league. I think that we're going to make some moves. I think Tom Telesco is going to be brewing up something. I can't wait to see what he's got. So I appreciate you again. Like this video, subscribe, turn those notifications. I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate all my viewers. And the way I do that is doing my giveaways. So my next giveaway is at 4,000 subscribers. If you want to be included in that, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys on the next video. I'm out.